And joining us now, born in Chicago, dominated at Syracuse, but owned Philadelphia, 6 Pro Bowls, 5 NFC Championship games, and perhaps, most importantly, the best guest in afternoon show history.
There you go.
One Donovan McNabb.
Donovan J. McNabb.
Good morning. I should say good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Good
How
afternoon.
we doing today?
Well, not good, to be honest with you.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Donovan, we started the show, and I was talking to Ike about yesterday's game. And I said to him, the reason that I wasn't so mad is I felt like I was watching the exact same team that I've watched almost every game this year. They just lost by 3 points instead of winning by 3 points. Did you feel any of that watching that team yesterday?
I thought it was a overdue point of emphasis on trying to find ways to get the ball to A.J. Brown, which I think it still kind of took away from what I want to see from this offense, and we have been able to do it well, and that's running the football in the play-action game. I think we're entirely too heavy in the drop-back game. And with the public cry and everybody, talking about A.J. not getting the ball, I felt like we got away from the success that we could be doing, and that's spreading the ball around and getting our tight ends and running backs involved in the passing game, but running the football a lot more with attempts with our running backs. But the problem here is, I think that's getting overlooked, is the offensive line is not that good. Our offensive line is struggling, and we're not opening up running lanes for Saquon Barkley. It's not Saquon. He has nowhere to run. And so when we revert back just to the passing game, we're going to have games where we're going to come out and it's going to look explosive, and then we're going to hit a wall, and that's going to lead to a lot of 3 and out. And when we're not being creative with shifts and motions and putting guys in multiple positions, it's going to look the way it's been looking over the last 12 weeks or 11 weeks.
Yeah, my fear or concern right now, Five, is listen, you brought up the offensive line's play. I just don't know how that gets better. We've been talking about the O-line not playing at the level they played at last year, but
right.
It's forget about playing at the level they played at last year. They're playing probably the worst they played in the last 3 or 4 years around here with this team.
As a collective unit.
Yeah, exactly, as a collective unit. And I don't know if that gets better. Are you seeing something where it will improve, or is this just what we're sort of going to have to deal with the rest of the year?
Well, we all know as former players and playing in Philadelphia, when you start to get older, they usually start to make a shift. And I don't know if they have the depth, really, to be able to put anybody else in the game at some of those positions. Listen, losing Lane to injury has really hurt us from the right tackle standpoint. I think Mulata's not playing the way he's been playing up until this season. I think this is probably one of his down years. Dickerson hasn't been playing well. And really, to be honest with you, injuries have really plagued our offensive line. And even when they're healthy, they look hurt. And so I just think for your question, I don't think it gets better, to be honest with you. I really don't. And I think what we have to do is we have to cater our running game to be more of read option. I think we have to get back to the read option where Jalen becomes a little bit more of the running game than just Saquon and Tate.
Yeah, it sort of feels like what they were trying to do with Jalen, because he's been banged up at the end of the year, is almost save that and not put him in harm's way. But they're in a point this year with the offense where I don't know if they have any other choice at this point. And I would also say, I think if he's in a designed run, there's probably a better chance that he gets out of that without taking a big hit than if he's scrambling, which was a bunch of the runs yesterday felt like scrambles.
Well, they called a few quarterback draws. They've called a few quarterback draws, and he understands how to avoid some of those big hits, especially when you're running up the middle, and he did a great job with that. I'm with them as far as limiting his called runs, but our running game is going to continue to take a hit. And it's unfortunate because Saquon coming off the year, the expectations were so high. We didn't bring back then at the right guard position. We had injuries at the center and the left guard position. Lane's now getting banged up a little bit. Jordan's not playing at the caliber that he had been playing leading up into this season. It's just there are a lot of key factors into this, and then you spoil over with a disgruntled wide receiver to the questions about the coordinator. It's just so much that happens when you either win the Super Bowl or you make it to the Super Bowl, and that's kind of the position that you put yourself in when you do find yourself in the big game, and then you come back the next season where expectations are so high.
Donovan, let me ask you just about a comment you made earlier about the creativity on offense. So, yeah. Mike McDaniel, probably one of the most creative offensive coordinators in the NFL. And right. They're sitting there because they're not playing well, scoring 20 points a game. Is it difficult to do things that are more creative and more complicated when you're not even doing a particularly good job doing the basic things, if that makes any sense?
Well, if you're being creative to create mismatches, it's a very easy solve. And that could be, let's say, for instance, if we're constantly lining A.J. Brown over to the left side of the field, it's time for him to start out to the right, maybe get a zoom motion, which you bring him to the opposite tackle and then bring him back to where he started. We maybe shift the tight ends or running backs or whoever's in the slot at that particular time on cadence, and they move from the right to the left, and then you motion just to kind of create mismatches where you can find ways to get him the ball. The old traditional way is back in the day when the Indianapolis coach used to just line Reggie Wayne up to the left and Marvin Harrison to the right. That type of offense is kind of null and void now. Now you have to move and shift and get people in different positions. I mean, if you look at what the Rams have been doing with Puka Nacua and also Devontae Adams, they've been moving those guys around and putting them in positions where you get one-on-one matchups versus the second or third corner or, a safety or whatever it may be. You have to be able to do that. And there's nothing against the offensive coordinator that's there now because this is his first time in that position. And Kellen Moore had to learn as well. It took him about 8 weeks for him to understand the talent that he had. But I just think for what we're seeing from this team, it's just not exciting. It's nothing that kind of, as a fan that's sitting there watching like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. It's almost like somewhat predictable at times.
Mm-hmm. Well, Drew Brees definitely called us boring as an offense. So
yeah.
So
did Donovan.
Yeah, I know. Okay. I was just gonna put it on Drew, but yes, I guess 5. He did say it.
but see, and some people may take it the wrong way or whatever it may be. But when you've been in an offense and it's been creative, this looks boring.
Like, yeah, you know it. Yeah, you know it when you see it.
I mean, it's just like, for instance, Sean Payton was his coach, and I would give anybody credit if they can name the receivers that Drew Brees threw to in New Orleans. But they found ways to get guys the ball, and that's being creative. And Andy was being creative. Andy's still being creative in Kansas City. So it's just a lot of questions that people kind of could compare. But when we do see it, for the teams that we played on, to find guys ways to be, explosive in an offense, and I just don't see that happening right now.
This can encompass a bunch of different things, but I think all of them are applicable. This team just feels like a Super Bowl hangover team to me, both physically and mentally. You have the mental
thing. But isn't it like that, to be honest? I don't mean to cut you off, but isn't it like that usually every year a team comes off a Super Bowl or a Super Bowl loss?
Oh, sure.
Yep.
Yeah. And we had the same thing after a Super Bowl loss in 2023.
Yep.
You get you get the physical toll that all of those games took, and I think offensive line and Saquon, you can probably point to that. Mm-hmm. And then there's the mental thing where, especially after you win a Super Bowl, the next year everybody just wants something for themselves.
Good about themselves.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, look at Kansas City. Like, for instance, Kansas City had been successful in Super Bowls. And even when they lost to Tampa, the year where they had a lot of injuries, and then obviously with situation they had with Andy's family, they came back that next year, and it was kind of a tough deal for them, but they pulled through and found ways to win.
Yeah.
And so even now with Kansas City, it's a chance that they might not be able to make the playoffs, but they're fighting right now. Mm-hmm. And it's not exciting. It's really not. Like, you're down against the Indianapolis Colts, and then you got to fight your way back. So I just think that's the way the NFL is. It's about parity. But when you do come off that win or loss, expectations are so high, and injuries play a major part. And some guys just don't play the same.
And I tell you one thing that's helped Kansas City, because I've used Kansas City as an example, as far as maybe they aren't the same explosive team. Patrick Mahomes can't do some of the things he's done in years past, especially when he had Tyreek Hill or when Travis Kelce was younger. But I said this, Five. I said the one thing you never seen with Kansas City, for the most part, you didn't see any infighting. There isn't any finger pointing. There aren't leaks to the media and all that type of stuff.
No, that's right.
That we have going on here. Like, we hit a little bit of a rough patch, and the first thing we want to start doing is start pointing the fingers at guys and leaking stuff to the media. And that, to me, it's not directly Coach Sirianni's fault, but it's his culture that he is setting that I think doesn't allow for them to sort of fight through this stuff and stay banded together versus separated. And this was the first week that I started worrying, like, man, this thing might cost us another shot at the Super Bowl. Like, I don't know if we're going to actually get there. Like, I don't know if we're actually going to get there, just because I don't know if they believe they are a championship caliber team. I don't know if the players believe that. I don't know if they believe that. They say it
as a team.
Yeah, as a team.
I'm with you. Individually, I think some players kind of have that mentality, but now they're really starting to question.
Yeah.
And I know some people would say, well, it happened under Andy's watch. Obviously they'll bring our names up with it, but it's just when you have the right pieces where you don't have to worry about that type of stuff.
Yep.
That's the main thing, and it's not Andy and the culture that he built, because we know how the culture is and what Andy was about. It's when you start bringing pieces in that the toxic talk starts to create a bad aura around the team. And so I'm glad you brought that up about Kansas City, because he's been going out, but what did he do? He pulled away one of the toxic parts of it, and that was when he decided to go a different direction, from Tariq. When he went away from the Tariq situation, everybody was saying what? They're not the same team, and Patrick's not going to be the same type of quarterback without Tariq. And they've been to multiple Super Bowls afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes you may have to make that tough decision, and that's why I said this may be the last year for A.J. Brown.
Oh, I would be shocked if it wasn't.
Because of all of this.
Yeah.
But the wild part about it, and it never fails, is that now everybody's kind of talked about AJ, but what was the conversation last week that's now spilling over? It's about Jalen and how people feel about Jalen and coaches and players and his on-field stuff, where it's so funny because it's almost deja vu again. I've been through it. I've seen it happening, and it was just a matter of time before all of this talk starts happening. Because now, with that conversation last weekend, I wonder now with the loss, what does that look like going through this week?
Yep. All right, Donovan. Well, we thank you as always. We're playing your Chicago Bears on Friday.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, where's your?
That's not my Bears.
I mean, okay, all right, okay. Just making sure. Just making sure.
My Bears had sweetness and
okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But I will say this about the Bears. I give a lot of credit to Caleb Williams and just him understanding the things that you have to do in order to become an NFL quarterback. And obviously Ben has helped them out in so many ways, and their defense deserves a lot of credit. But it's going to be a tough matchup for us against Chicago.
Yep.
All right, Donovan.
See creativity.
Yep. Certainly from Ben Johnson, for sure. We will talk to you next week. Thanks as always, Donovan.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, broski.
There he is, the great Donovan McNabb.